Okay, shalom aleichem, everybody. Welcome one, welcome all. Mazel tov, mazel tov. Today we are celebrating the conclusion of Sefer Tahara, the conclusion of a fairly challenging book, challenging in that perhaps we're not as familiar with this area of Torah as we are in many other areas. It's not necessarily in yeshivas are we studying these mesechtas, are we studying these parts of Torah? And every year when we get close to Tahara, people say, uh-oh, we're getting close to Tahara, we're going to be able to do it. So Mazel Tov, some of us learned it a little bit better, some of us could learn it perhaps a little bit better, but as we conclude the Sefer, it truly is a milestone that each of us should celebrate. And as we join together here this evening, we join together to encourage each other, to strengthen each other, so that we can be able to enter and forge forward into Sefer Nezikin with added enthusiasm, with added oomph, and with more chayas, exuberance, and enthusiasm. So welcome one, welcome all. And to take us in this bridge from Taras to Nezikin, it's not a step down. We're not moving from purity to damages, but we're moving up. We're fighting the world. Now that we have Tahara, we have the ability to have Nezikin to be able to take on all the challenges in the world and to overcome them. And our guest for this Siyum is a very, very special, dear personal family friend and a very, very well-known personality throughout the world and throughout Lubavitch. Rabbi Garelik, thank you very much for joining us, an author, a lecturer, a speaker, a rav, a madrich, a mashpia to so many around the world. Thank you very, very much for joining us on the Siyum, Rabbi Garelik.
It is my pleasure and honor.
Thank you, thank you. So you are known in many areas of Halacha, but one of the areas that I know that is a specialty and a favorite of yours is the world of Mikvaos. We're all now experts in Mikvaos because we've just come from the Rambam. So we're not going to ask you to give a faher and to test us all on all that we've learned. But I just want to begin. I know that you're from Italy and Mikvaos and the world of Mikvaos in America. Can you give us sort of a little bit of a basic backdrop to the world of Mikvaos and share your most interesting stories, cases related to you, your family, your father, Italy, and Mikvaos and Rambam? See if you can put that all together for us.
So I'll start first from Rambam because we're doing a Siyum, and being that one of the reasons, I guess, why I was asked to come on at this Siyum is because it's right after my father's Yahrtzeit, which happened last week. So I just wanted to mention something very interesting, that the first Siyum Rambam happened in Tafshim Mem Hey, 1985. At that time, no one knew yet exactly what the Siyum Rambam is supposed to look like, because it was the first time that we learned Rambam. The Siyum was in Yud Aleph Nisan, right before Pesach. So not too many people were into the concept of the Siyum. They were going to see what the Rebbe is going to do. My father also, of course, was going to make a Siyum, but he didn't know exactly, how do you handle it? So the first time they made a big Siyum was the following year in Tafshim Mem Vav, 1986. And in Italy, they made not just a Siyum Rambam, they made it into a first-class dinner. It looked like a wedding more than a Siyum. Why? Because Siyum, what are you talking about? Siyum Rambam. And as a matter of fact, the Rebbe then requested that all the Siyumim should write down the speeches that were made. So I had the great schus then of making this book, which is called Sha'arei Roimi, which means the doors of Rome, which is of the Siyum Harambam in Tafshim Mem Vav. And inside we have a few of the Chidush HaTorah from the people. Here is the head table.
Oh, wow.
The Siyum Rambam. Here is the crowd, the men, and believe it or not, same amount of women. So this was mamish, a first-class event. And everybody, of course, remembered it for years. They had music, mamish like a chasen, a real Siyum, because my father was really into it. And of course, the reason why we called it Sha'arei Roimi, it's very interesting. Until the Rebbe started learning the concept of Rambam, that we should learn Rambam every day, Rambam was made for the yeshivas shemesechtes, they learned the Rambam. Mitamol, the Rebbe came out with Rambam, we saw the Vuven, they learned Sachakel, 4 or 5 svarim of the Rambam. Nezikin, Noshim, Zmanim, whatever. Mitamol, the Rebbe said, no, give back. Chidush Reb Chaim. Reb Chaim Brisker. He doesn't start from Perik Aleph in the Rambam. He starts from Perik Hey, where it talks about Kiddush Hashem. That's very longish. The first 2 Perokim of Yedias Hashem, Havas Hashem, the other 2 Perokim about the world and the system of the universe. Madchar Shmei, whoever learned it in yeshivas. Be'afrad, the Siyum of the Rambam, talking about Hilchas Mashiach. Whoever learned it? Nobody. There's no Sfarim on it. At least those days there was nothing. So that's what we call the Shari Romi, which means the doors of Rome, because the Siyum Rambam talks about Mashiach. And where's Mashiach? Says the Gemara in Sanhedrin, Mashiach is sitting at the doors of Rome. So what could be more fitting than making a Siyum Rambam in Milan? Okay, so this is just a brief when it comes to the actual Siyum Rambam.
I apologize. The food today is not as good at the Siyum.
Yeah. So that's just one word regarding the concept of Siyum Rambam. When it comes to the idea of Mikvaos, really there's a lot to talk. And if you could give me the ability to share the screen.
You do. You have permission. You have permission.
I have permission to share the screen. So give me a moment here. I'm going to just go through a little bit of interesting history here. Do you see the map?
It says, yes, we see it. Oh, look at this.
Okay. I am a very proud Italian. I'm sorry for you for not being such a Californian. Okay. I'm just going to show this to just give a little bit of a introduction to the subject that we're going to be hitting. Being that not everybody's Italian who's watching it, I just want to give you a few names of a few cities which are Negea. The first one over here on the right is Venezia. Venezia is Venice, which is over here on the top. Right under Venezia, right around the corner here, Milano, by the way, Milano is over here on the top, in the center top. Venezia is on the right. Right around the corner, there's a tiny little city called Rovigo. We're going to be talking about the famous Mikvaos of Rovigo. You're soon going to be shocked to hear what happened in Rovigo with the Mikvaos. Just for some side information, right under Rovigo, there's a place called Repubblica di San Marino. And right near Repubblica di San Marino, there's a tiny, tiny little city, which is called Bertinoro.
Someone is suggesting that if you click on slideshow and you go to presentation, it'll make it much bigger. If you click on the tab slideshow,
my technician, because to me this is all
just presentation mode, so your father can show it in bigger. The previous slide.
Which slide are we at?
There we go. Perfect. Okay.
No. Is it this? Yep.
Perfect. Yeah. Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. Oh, now we're big. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. This Bertinoro really is what everybody knows as Bartinura. The reason why everybody calls it Bartinura, because when you read it in Hebrew, it looks like Bartinura. But really, if you go to Italy and you ask where's the city Bartinura, nobody's going to know what you're talking about. Look for a city called Bertinoro. This is what it's really called. Okay. Now, on the bottom over here, you see there's a city called Bari. Right under Bari, you can't see it over here. It's not on this map. There's another tiny little city called Otranto. It may be covered over here. I don't know if you see what it says up here on the side.
It does. No, we see it.
Yeah, Rabbeinu Tam says in Sefer Yosher, the Rashi is Einikul. Rabbeinu Tam, you talk about 600, 700 years ago. He said in Sefer Yosher, Ki mi bari teitze teure udvar Hashem otranto. That's the first one. The passage says, Ki mitzion teitze teure udvar Hashem Yerushalayim. Says Rabbeinu Tam in Heimtige Zeiten. Where is that? Ki mi bari teitze teure udvar Hashem otranto.
So you're going to have to educate us and tell us a little bit about Bari so we can appreciate it.
Today there's almost nothing. There's this south of Italy is very little, very, very little Judaism left. Very, very little. Okay? Weiter. Let's go to the left side. The left side, right under Milano, about an hour and a half drive, 2 hours, is Genova. Genova, since we are talking about Italy, so I figured I'll bring it in. Everybody knows what Janove and Streigim are. Janove is the city of Genova. The reason why the Streigim are called Janove is because Genova was a port. And the Streigim grow down here in Calabria, on the bottom. They were brought up to Genova. And from Genova, they were shipped all over the place and also above to the whole of Europe and Russia, etc. That's what it's called Janove. Under Genova, you have a city called Livorno. I went to check out the mikveh in Livorno many years ago. Then you have Rome. Then on the bottom, you have Napoli. So we're going to be talking today about two mikvaos, one in Rovigo and one in Napoli. Okay, Sasha, I need you for a second.
Just keep clicking forward. You'll be fine.
Yeah, no, it's in a different place. Okay, here we go. See it?
Yes. Perfect.
I'm not going to read it in Hebrew. I'm just going to read it in English so it goes faster. There was a story in the year 1600. In other words, about 400 years ago. Yeah, there was a massive machlekes between the Chachmei Yisrael of Italy. Now, I just gave you the introduction that Rabbi Tam calls me Yahrtzeit Varashem Otratos. You could imagine how many Rabbanim you had in Italy at that time. Okay, this is a few hundred years later, but you still had a very big amount. And one of the biggest milchamis was about the mikveh in Rovigo. Some said it's mutter, some said it's asur. And the whole Italy divided into two machnes, those that say mutter, those that say asur. The machlekes started in the year 1600 between Rebbe Avtalion and Rebbe Shlomo Concilio of Rovigo. He was on those that said that it's asur. And then you had Reb Chistio Finzi from Ferrara. Ferrara is near Livorno, near Venezia over there. He was the ones that were matir. And each one went to different rabbonim to get them on their side. Afazevite, believe it or not, without WhatsApp, without email, they got the rabbonim in Tzfas to get involved from Eretz Yisrael. And Reb Moshe Galante was one of the top rabbonim at that time. And everybody got psokim le'iser and leheter. Was the Gevaran HaMeridik Milchama. And each one started printing their tzad, and came out a sefer called Mashbis Milchamis. Then came out a sefer against called Mikveh Yisrael. Then came out a sefer against called Palge Mayim. And so tzach giton about the mikveh in Rovigo. Anybody who learns Mikvaos in Shulchan Aruch will be able to see that it's brought down on the side, the concept of the mikveh of Rovigo. What was the machlokes? So here we have to go to another sefer. And his story was as follows. There was a Rav in Rovigo, and his name was Rebbe Avtalion Rebbe Shlomo Concilio. He lived in a house, and over there he built a mikveh, and the mikveh was under his auspices. How did they fill up the mikveh? Again, this is, I don't want to go off in a tangent. People don't realize the mikvahs that we have today. If we have time later, I could show him more stuff. The mikvahs that we have today in the buildings, Baruch Hashem, where now, Baruch Hashem, thousands of people go to the mikveh, which that wasn't the case years ago, is because now we have pipes coming into the houses. And the whole chokmah was how the Rabbanim are able to figure out how to make shamim, rainwater into the house, on top of it, the city water. So b'meila, we have a mikveh. But in the good old days, they had to take water from a well. They had to bring it. It was a ganze geschäft how to bring it, because you're not allowed to use any kelim. Anybody who learned Mikvaos knows that. And the rainwater didn't always rain. It was a tzara tzurah. How did he do it? So he explains it a bit there. They used to have a be'er. They had a well. I'm holding the third line in this second thing here. And in order to take out the water, you can't do it in a keli. They took and made holes in the keli. They made holes. So now it's not really a keli because it has holes. But just to make a few little kelim, a few little holes is not enough. So they also had another bigger hole on the side, a big size, keshveperes anoid, a couple of inches. And b'meile, what they used to do is they used to pull out the water from the well, and the violets of dream. Imagine taking water and there's holes on the bottom, right? So they took and gist from the be'er onto a pipe, a wooden pipe. From the wooden pipe, it went down till the mikveh. That's how they used to do it. It was a ganze geschäft. Fine. And he did this for over 10 years. The Rebbe Avtalion was the mashgiach, he was the Rav, everything was fine. Went by about 10 years, and the Rebbe Avtalion moved to another house. When he moved to the other house, so he gave over the mikveh to his brother, Rebbe Kusil. By IYUN came Rebbe Avtalion to the mikveh, and what does he see? That bitamol, they're not using the same bucket that he had designed them with the big hole. They only have the little holes, but the big hole is not there, and there's less little holes, etc. So now there's a whole question on the mikveh whether it's kosher. And this was the massive machlokes between the tzad matirim, the tzad ha'oisrim, and this one said that it's treifah, this one said that it's kosher. So this is basically the story of Rovigo. In these words that you see over here in this old sefer, this was written by the Chidah. The Chidah is Rabbi Chaim Yosef David Azulai. He was a meredike guy. He wrote a lot of sfarim, the Birkei Yosef, etc. He wrote a massive diary, and over here he writes the whole story. The Bishnat Shin Samar, the Meramikveh in Rovigo, and he explains how it did, and then how they messed it up. So all the Rabbanim all over the world got into a war about the mikveh in Rovigo. This is a story of the mikveh of Rovigo. Then, shorter story, I'm not going to give you the whole story, I'm just going to say one point, is the mikveh of Napoli. I remember we saw before Napoli on the other side.
You can stop sharing the screen now. You don't have to share the screen for this yet.
Say it again?
Do you need to still share the screen?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay.
Another little bit, yeah? You still...
No, good, perfect.
Okay. Now, this is already also from the Birkei Yosef. That Metamol, he's talking over here about a certain type of a keli, this and that and whatever. And then he says, you see over here, which is the box, Napoli. This is already last 300 years ago. That there's a guy who was made in Napoli about a certain thing. Les dine veles dine. So Napoli also became a place for for whole issue. And he says over here that Hamekil osid litan as a din, whoever's Mekil is going to have to whatever. So we have an interesting mikveh. We have an interesting mikveh in Napoli. I was now that I'm going through my father's papers, unfortunately, I came across a very interesting point. The Rebbe wrote a letter to my father, my parents, both my father and my mother was in Topshir Chav Beis in 1962. And on the bottom, after the Rebbe's signature, the Rebbe writes, Lekosva, regarding what you're writing, Al Dvar Mikveh Be Napoli. So the Amalekite Napoli was being remembered as a controversial. Here, they came to make a mikveh in Napoli, as if it's after design. And the Rebbe says, since these halachas are not so simple, so therefore, and by mikveh we're mishtadel, that should be behidur kachola efshari, that should be the best way. Kedai, it's kedai she's kasev bozeim rabboni anash, that he should be in correspondence with the rabbonim of anash shekvar oskum kendo, that they already they dealt with this issue, bepoyol, etc. So they worked on the mikveh of Napoli, and Baruch Hashem, my father, right after that, also built a mikveh in Greece, in Yavam.
When your parents came to Italy, there was a mikveh there already?
Oh, I'm getting to the next one is the mikveh where my parents came. Now, here comes the story, which is very interesting. If we have the time later, I'm going to explain the concept of mikvahs. But
I don't think we're going to get it to get there. We're going to have to have a to be continued.
No problem at all. So just B'kitzur Nimrod, one of the basic differences between a Lubavitcher mikveh and the other mikvahs is that everybody knows that a mikveh means that there's rainwater and city water. The question is, how do they connect? In the Welt, they connect sideways. Either a mikvah shaka, a mikvah zriya, whatever. We're not going to get into the details, but it's side by side. In Lubavitch, the Rebbe Rashab made it that it should be beir al gabe beir, one on top of the other. The Rebbe Rashab made the mikveh in Tov Reish Ayin Ches, which is, I forgot already which year. This is 1928.
Oh, wait.
Oh, no, 18.
18, sorry.
1918, which means it's 105 years. It's a Pesach 100 years. I searched around, where is the next mikveh that was built Beir al Gabe Beir after the Rebbe Rashab in Lubavitch? And I found that the next one, I didn't find anyone before Milan. What happened is, my parents went on Shlichus in 1958 in December. Before my parents came to Milan, there was a Lubavitcher Rav. And because he left, that's why my parents went to Italy. Because there was a small shul from the Zippel family. They had a lot of the She'eris HaPleito, the people that came from all over from the wars, from the concentration camps, etc. So they opened up this Ashkenazi shul. And Rabbi Perlov, who was an old Lubavitcher Rav, wrote a lot of Sfarim, was a big London, but he was an older man. He came from Paris, so he came to Milan in 1950 or 51. Tafshin Yud Aleph, I think he came. Then in 1958, he told the Zippel family that he's getting older. He was already an old man, and he has an only son in Australia, and he wants to go to Australia. So Mr. Zippel asked the Rebbe to send a couple to Milan, and that's how my parents ended up. But in 1953, the Rebbe pushed Rabbi Perlov to take the mikveh in Milan, which was there, and fix it properly. And here we're going to see a very interesting thing, that he turned it into a beir al gabe beir. And here the Rebbe writes to him, this is Gimel Nisan Tafshin Yud Gimel. And he writes that the Rebbe says, regarding the mikveh, I see that you are trying to figure out, because there's no rain, and you want to do it with snow, with the ice, whatever. We're not going to get into all the details. And the Rebbe says, there's a lot of shilas on this, and there are some that are machshir. Aber Becholze says the Rebbe is not very happy about it. But look at the end of the letter. Unbelievable. The Rebbe says in the letter, Look, you see the bottom? There's a paragraph that starts.
We're not on the slide. We don't have the slide of the letter. No.
No?
We're looking at the Chidah still.
Oh, I went down.
We don't see the letter.
Anyway, they were able to see. You saw my father's letter. You saw?
No, we didn't see your father's letter either.
Oh,
I didn't read. I thought you were reading from a paper. I didn't realize you were reading.
No, I have it on the screen.
You don't see it right here?
You don't see the Rebbe's letter on the screen?
No, maybe stop sharing and share again. No.
Okay, stop share and share again.
It's on our screen.
Yes.
Okay, let's see. Now we see the letter. Oh, we see the letter.
What a pity. Okay. So you see on the bottom, Lekos Veldvar Mikve Benapoli.
Yeah,
Right
exactly.
after the Rebbe's signature. Okay. Now I'm scrolling down. Do you see it?
Yes, now we see it. Perfect. Yes.
So here you see the letter from Gimel Nisan Tafshin Yud Gimel, where the Rebbe starts, Beman al Michtavoy, about the mikveh, whether to make it kosher, Bekerach Melachuti, in the second line, right, which is man-made ice, etc. But here on the bottom, watch this. This is Meredik. The Rebbe writes, Olo Berayoini. Do you see it on the bottom?
We see it clear. Yes.
You hardly find the Rebbe should say Alosh Olo Berayoini. I had him. It came up in my mind. You know what? She'ulai that maybe adayin chaser ma ba mikveh shalahem. Maybe something is wrong with the mikveh. V'zeh me'akev akshamim, and this holds up the rain. The rest was the tutzach.
Wow.
The Rebbe is saying Olo Berayoni, which means the Rebbe before just says he's not very happy with the fact that he wants to use the. And Mitamo says the Rebbe, maybe it's because of the mikveh. Gave weiter in Chav Tesiven. What does the Rebbe write to him? Nehenesi, I had a no that what you wrote me about the mikveh, that everything is okay, and you're starting the mikveh. Aberule pele shelehiskir be'eze oif nikva mayim you make shamim. You're not telling me was it rainwater? Was it this kera? Right? And behesel mashikasafte lekatar. What I wrote to you in the past, right? So then the next one, the Rebbe says, benoyam kibalti michtave behirgia esruchi. You made me ruik. Make shamim. That they were able to put 900 liters of make shamim. Now I have a different paper somewhere. Not going to get into it. That what was the issue over there? There was a question on the hamshach. He had another question about the hamshach, but it's a way how the rain goes in. Bottom line is the Rebbe says, I think Allah berayoni, that maybe the reason why you can't have any rain is because there's a problem with the mikveh. And here was fixed, and now everything's taken care of. So this is just Bekitz and Nimritz if we want to talk about Mikvaos in Italy. I could go on and on and on, but this is just Bekitz and Nimritz.
Wow. Thank you, Rabbi Garelik. Thank you. Before we actually do the Siyum and the Haskalah, is there a parting story perhaps that comes to mind about your father that can give us a little bit of chizuk in our dedication to the Rebbe and making sure that we don't miss a day, make sure we do the Rambam a little bit better, make sure we do it on time? Your father was obviously a larger-than-life personality known for his dedication to Shlichus and the Rebbe. Is there anything that comes to mind that you can sort of end us off with? Because this was really incredible. Thank you. A story.
I'm sorry. I don't know if my father had anything specific from the Rebbe regarding Rambam per se.
Not Rambam, but just something about his dedication, some story about your father and the Rebbe, something.
That I would say that one of the things I think that are really outstanding that everyone can take from that is when my parents went out in 1958, there were very few shluchim, and there was no other shluchim that you could learn how to do things. Today, somebody goes on shlichus, there's a couple of thousand batei Chabad, a couple of thousand shluchim. Everybody already does mitzvahim. Everything is out there. There's everything. Then there was nothing, and not even a telephone to be able to call somebody, because there was telephone, but it was very expensive. Very expensive. They never. My parents never called. My mother never called her parents in Pittsburgh. It was unheard of. If something was urgent, I remember as a kid, already in the late 60s, in 67, 68, 69, that if somebody was urgent, you sent a telegram. Most people don't even know what a telegram is, okay? But it goes the same day from one end of the world to the other, but you have to dictate letter by letter, whatever. That's what they use, the telegram. So my father, any question that he had, and he had questions almost every day. he would write a letter to the Rebbe. And he would get back letters. He got back from the Rebbe dozens and dozens and dozens of letters. They say that my father has a letter for every single day of the year. It's almost 100% correct.
Really? Oh, wow.
I'm working on it now. And you put it this way. If we also put, when the Rebbe writes, for example, I got your letter from, and the Rebbe writes, this date and this date and this date. So we could use those days too, if you really want to. Then with that, we could get there. But I'm saying even without that, there's Bli Anhara almost for every single day. And I'm still not done putting it all together. Anyways, I don't know exactly which year this was, but this must have been most probably about 10 years later in Tafshir Chavtes, around that time. And my father was in Yechidus, and the Rebbe told these words. We have a little bit, maybe not exactly verbatim, but almost le'erich. The Rebbe said these words. Till when we'll have to carry you around like a kid? One of my brothers says that my father one time even said that the Rebbe went with his hands like this, till when we'll have to hold you like a baby in the hands. And these are the words that the Rebbe used. Tracht in Chabad, think in Chabad, you'll be mechaven to my kavanah. I don't know exactly how to say it in English. You're going to hit the target of what I want you to do. And I remember specifically, I remember this clearly. If my father had to go to a very big meeting, and my father had plenty of those, the night before he would sit, those days there was no Likutei Sichos yet. There was Likutei Sichos till, I remember when Chelik Hay came out. Okay, so this was way before that. So my father's main books that he used, well, I have one downstairs actually, I can show you, what's called the onion papers. The Sichos used to be typed on very thin paper because it was expensive and that the type, don't ask. So he used to sit a whole night with these onion papers, sitzen and learn a ganze Nacht. Chassidus, Sichos, and the next day he went, and I don't ever remember my father failed. Okay?
Wow.
He was always matzliach. Why? Because he had this bracha from the Rebbe. Tracht in Chabad, so I think that this is a hero that we could definitely all follow and cherish.
And on that note, Trachten in Chabad, and we will be matzliach. Let us formally together conclude. If we can ask the moderator to please put up the very final halacha in Sefer Tahara of the Rambam, and we will together celebrate the conclusion of Sefer Tahara. Rabbi Garelik, if you could please honor us. You don't have to teach it in depth, but if we could just sort of read through, even halfway through, and conclude the Sefer.
Sure. Yeah, you have it in English on the other side.
Yes.
It's a clear thing that the whole concept of Tum and Tara is a gzeira sakosov. It's not something. It's not something logic. It's not logic. And also the concept of going to Tevel Zach from Tum and Tara. It's also a chukka. Why? Tumma is not a schmutz, a gashmish piece of dirt that has to come off. This has to do with the mind of the person. It's the mind. That's what the Chachamim said. If somebody went to the mikveh and it is not a bekavana to be tevel, it's as if it didn't tevel. I'm not going to go to the halacha of this, but the Rambam is trying to bring out a concept that the kavan is diker. The afal pikein, even though it's a chukka, remes yes bedober. We can find a shtickle remes to it. That what? That kashem shamechaven libe letahir, just like a person who has a mind to become tahir. Kivish etov al tahir. The moment he goes to the mikveh, he's automatically tahir because he had that in mind. Ve'afal pishel in his chadash begufei dober, even if nothing happened to his body, because he didn't come any cleaner. He took a shower before the mikveh. He was perfectly clean, so the mikveh didn't add anything. Just the same thing when a person wants to clean himself from the spiritual tumor. When he has the bad thoughts, etc. The moment he decides to disattach himself from those negative things, and he brought his nefesh to the waters of das, which is the waters of tahir, then he becomes tahir. There's a long, it's very interesting, by the way, Stam, that the Rebbe, for many years, the Rebbe said that there's a word missing here. It's supposed to be b'mei das, tahir. And then later the Rebbe spoke there, we can say b'mei das, tahir. It's a peleotzim. We're not going to get into that. Okay. As it says in the pasuk in Cheskel, there's a rakta lechem ma'im teirim utartem mekoltem mesechem mekol belechem tarestem. That the Rebbe is going to throw on us water and is going to clean us all from the Tumah Tahara. And the Rambam finishes off with a tefillah. The Hashem berachma barabi mikol chet oven ve'ashma yatareinu amen. The Rebbe with his big rachamim. So from all the sins and the impurities and negativism, the Rebbe should betahir us. That's time. By the way, there's a slikul because there's just one 30-second line. The Rebbe asks a question over here on these words. Hashem berachma v'rabim kachet oven ve'ashmi tareinu omen. Why does the Rambam finish off with something negative? It's like he uses the tahareinu omen, but it's a negative concept of oven ve'ashma to finish off with the negative. And it is an unbelievable line. The Rebbe says Mikvaos. The Rambam has 11 chapters. We all know 10 is alikus. Alikus is, I said, it's a dibber, it's 10. 11 is klippa, right? The Yudala Falufim and all. So, for example, the Samoni Makteris are 11. Why? Because you have Chelbana, right? What's that in of 11? 11 is when we take the clip and we have the Kedusha, then it becomes the 11. And that's what the Rambam finishes off with that we take the negative and the Tahareinu Amen. This is the whole concept of Mikvaos.
And Maskifa Maschala Ashlama, let us just begin the very first halacha of Sefer Nezikin.
You don't want to say the beginning?
No, just the first halacha.
Okay, the fifth is also about the Rambam also wrote that, yeah. Anyways, any animal that is in the domain of in the reshus, the balabatishkeit of a person, shezika habaylim chayovim l'shalom. The people have to pay. Why? Because it's something that belongs to them that did the damage. Shenemar ki yigav sheir ish es sheir eya. That if my ox hits somebody else's ox, even though it's not me, it's my ox. And this is whether it's a ox or any other animal. Why does the Torah say shoir? That the pasuk is talking about what's normally, which is the animal that causes damages, is a shoir. So that's what the pasuk says, shoir. And on this, we also have a whole sikha, but we're going to leave it for another time.
Rabbi Garelik mentioned, God should bless you with many long, healthy years to continue being Meifetz Torah.
And the organizer should be blessed.
Amen. Thank you. Really an honor to have you here. And thank you for sharing your father and your parents and the Shlichus with us as well. Thank you. And now we're going to move on to the quiz. Let's see how well we knew Sefer Tahara. We'd like to ask the moderator to please put up the quiz. This is for $100 towards a set of Rambam or Svarim or Rambam of your choice. And can we please put up the quiz on the board right now? Moderator, please. Okay. Question number 1. For those who can't see it and those who are watching later on so you can't see it, I'll be reading all the questions and answers. Please fill them out as we go. Which of these sets of halachas are not in Sefer Tahara? Hilchos Kelim, Hilchos Paraduma, Hilchos Tvila, or Hilchos Tumas Meis? Number 2, what is a beis hapras? Is it a hut dug in the olden days where you win a prize? Is it the Chevra Kadish's booth right next to the cemetery? Is it a field in which a grave was regretfully plowed? Or is it D, none of the above? 3, what is the preferred age for a paraduma? How old should a paraduma be ideally? In its first year, but not younger than 8 days, 3 or 4 years old, at least 30 days old, or ages of no significance? What is the answer? Number 4, is there any way for a Matzera to attend shul? A Matzera wants to come to shul. How can he do that? A, no, there's no way for him to come to shul. B, yes, he may come in for Kriyas HaTorah Kedusha, but stand on the side. 3, C, he may come in first and leave last and stay behind the Mechitza 4x4 Amos and 10 Tvachim high. Or D, he can only attend shul if it's for a bris or pidyon ben of his son. Number 5, how does the Rambam classify a zakena, an elderly woman? Is it A, if she can no longer tie her shoe while standing? B, if her friends call her old and she doesn't mind? C, if she begins to use a cane, or D, if she no longer goes to the market to shop on the market days. 6, regarding which halacha do we say the following concept? Mitamayech loy tamoni, va'ata tametani. The one that made you tame doesn't make me tame, but now you have made me tame. Where does that concept apply? Is that there's no such phrase in the Rambam? Is it B, regarding a tame person who swallowed a ring that was tame and then touched the fruit of tuma? Is it regarding food inside kalim, which are inside a kli cheres? Then the tuma enters the airspace of the kli cheres. Or is it D, when a person washed until sedayim but didn't dry off the water?
Very cute.
7, please choose the correct klalim regarding safek tuma. When we have a safek tuma, you're not sure if something is tamei. Is it A, a suffix tumah in a public thoroughfare is judged stringently? B, is it that a suffix tumah in a private domain is judged leniently? C, we learn from the Carbon Pesach that if you have tumah in a public thoroughfare, it's judged leniently. Or D, we learn from a saita that when you have tumah in a private domain, private area, it's judged l'chumra. Or E, all of the above. 8, what are the 7 mashkim? What are the 7 liquids that make something susceptible for tumah? And you have the choices are water, oil, dew, wine, milk, blood, honey. Water, dew, oil, wine, milk, fruit juice, and honey. Water, dew, oil, wine, milk, vinegar, and honey. Or water, dew, oil, wine, milk, sap of tree, and honey. 9, who can only become tahar in a mayan, but not a regular mikvah? Is that there's no such thing? A kosher mikvah is good for everyone. Is it a zav? Is it a kohen gadol before Yom Kippur? Or is it a matzayra? And lastly, number 10, how does the Rambam apply the din of shuv Hashem shichur kula? That if you, I don't want to translate. Okay, drawn water that flows on the ground is tar. What does that mean? If you take the water and you have it flow on the ground to go into the mikvah, it's tar. Is that A, that if a mikvah can be entirely shuvin, it can be entirely water, and then all you have to do is let it flow on the ground first, and then the mikvah is kosher? Is it B, that the mayim shuvim that flows on the ground can be more than 3 lugim, but less than half of the total of the necessary 40 sa of the mikvah? Is it C, if it is 3 lugim of mayim shuvin, even if the first flow on the ground before arriving the mikvah, it is possible? Or D, is it none of the above? It took me a while to read that, so I think, moderator, we can take it off, and I will very briefly give the answers. We can take down the quiz. I will give the answers. I guess the moderator wants to give people more time here. Okay. The law, which sets of halachas are not in Sefer Tahara? That was the laws of Tvila. What's a Beis Hapras? A Beis Hapras is a field that had a grave that was plowed. Now there's pieces of this bones in the field. See, what's the preferred age for a paraduma? 3 or 4 years old. Is there a way for a matzera to attend shul? The answer is yes. If he comes first, leaves last, and stays behind this partition, it's 4 by 4 by 10 tefachim high. How does the Rambam classify as a kena? This is someone, if her friends call her old and she doesn't mind. What was that law? When do we say that if the one who made you tamei didn't make me tamei, but now you've made me tamei? That's regarding this food that's inside a vessel, which are inside a kli cheres, a specific earthenware vessel. Then the tumah entered the airspace of the kli cheres. Which are true about a suffix tamei? If you're not sure, the answer is all of the above. In public thoroughfare, we rule leniently. Privately, we rule stringently, and that's derived from Carbon Pesach and from Saita. What are the 7 liquids? They are water, dew, oil, wine, milk, blood, and honey. And number 9, who can become tahar in only a mayan? The answer is a zav. And finally, number 10, how does the Rambam apply the law of allowing water to flow on the ground so that it can fill up the mikvah? The Rambam applies that you can have more than 3 lugim of water, but you have to have less than half the total 40 sa that's necessary. Thank you very, very much, everybody, for joining us. We look forward to seeing everybody together, those who are watching now, those who are watching Chabad, those who will watch later. And may the Eibush bench us that we were able to study Sefer Nezikin with added zest and enthusiasm. Hatzlacha Rabba, Gute Nacht, or good morning, wherever you are and watching this in the world. Thank you very much, and thank you, Rabbi Garelik is still on, so thank you very much again. Thank you, Rabbi Cantor, Rabbi Lane, Rabbi Bush, Rabbi Zaklis, and I'm missing some others who are helped create today's program. I'm merely the face of it all, but there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. So thank you very much, and a good night.